I look at content these days as not just giving how-to information. We have an abundance of information on how to do things. That's not what people need. And it's not that we should never give how-to, but that's what most people go to. They just give some like, yeah, my member just hit 100, this person just hit 100. There's not a lot of emotion attached to it. It's just kind of blah. It blends in, watered down, kind of filtered content that just blends in and doesn't even do any justice. And then people are like, content doesn't work. People buy into people. Yeah, there are probably some people that are just like, I'm going to join a gym. But if you're going to leverage social media and the power that it can have for you, people buy people. And so humanize yourself.
This is the Reinforce Your Gym podcast with your host, Dustin Vogel. This show is about arming gym owners with the tools, strategies, and lessons they need to take their business to the next level. That way, they can make a greater impact in their community. Now, let's get to work and reinforce your gym.
Hey, welcome guys to another episode of the Reinforce Your Gym podcast. I got a special guest speaker, someone that I brought in some big guns that I want to help you guys gym owners with your content, because I think we've gone a little too dependent on digital marketing in the terms of paid ads. This is another form of digital, but a little bit more organic. And so I just wanted to bring in an expert that's going to help you fix this, help you build like a simple content strategy, help you think differently about content, not get overwhelmed. So that's why I wanted to bring in my buddy here, Jason Meland, with on-demand coaching. And that's what he kind of helps you learn how to be, is an on-demand coach that people want to work with you. They're chasing you, you're not chasing them. And we're going to get into his experience, something that you guys should know. He has gym owner experience, multiple years. We're going to get into him franchising his concept and how that went. He is on American Ninja Warrior, and then he now helps people who are online coaches to develop their business, get more leads, and have content that really helps create that relevant type of connection. So we're going to get into this. Jason, you ready to do this, man?
I'm ready.
All
I was
right.
born ready.
Well, let's go into your story, man. I think that's the best way for people to get to know you. Kind of where does this journey begin of you getting into the fitness space, opening a gym, and of course, how in the world did you get on American Ninja Warrior? There's not a lot of people that have done that.
Hey, yeah. It's definitely a dream of mine, and it was a journey. And so I'll give the version of my story that I think would be the most insightful for you listening right now, to kind of give you the battle scars, the lessons, and the insights that I think will make some of the more tactical things that we're going to talk about today easier to apply. And so I was born in South Miami. No, I was kidding. I was a baby, and I just decided I was going to be a gym owner. No, so I spent about 7.5, almost 8 years in the fire service. And long story short, here I got electrocuted in a house fire and was in the hospital for 3 days. I had a very close call during the electrocution to dying. Only thing that saved me was the fact that I had like the bunker gear on and I was properly protected in that way. But during my hospital stay, I remember a doctor kind of looking down at me. It's an older man, white hair, and he was like, "Son," I was in my low 20s. He said, "Son, you're way too young to be this unhealthy and this out of shape." I had let myself pack on like 53 pounds. I definitely wasn't healthy. It tend to go one or two directions. You could be super fit, or you can be like just eating all the time and kind of lazy. And I went that direction. And so I took that as like a sign from God. I was just like, all right, I guess I gotta get myself back in shape. And so I started to get myself fit again, started to train my crewmates. And I realized like, I really like this. I really like helping people get fit, healthier, happier versions of themselves. And so I ended up retiring from the fire service and launched into doing personal training. So I got certified, started working in a big box gym. It was an LA Fitness. And I quickly realized like, I was like, okay, I definitely can't make a living doing this, like in this regard. And so that's what led me to working with some clients on the side and starting running local boot camps. I was doing in-home training for kids and adults, and I was trying to kind of figure out my path in the industry. And kind of by accident, I accidentally launched my fitness center, my gym. And so I was training people on the side of LA Fitness, which they didn't like. They ended up finding out, and basically I just got removed from the schedule one day without any word. And I was kind of left to like, all right, I got to figure something out. Well, I was running boot camps, right? And in these local parks. And I was using, you remember Groupon and like Living Social?
Oh yeah.
I don't know if they're still a big thing, but I was using those back then at their prime, and I was just getting loads and loads of clients. And so I had about 50 people. I was running boot camps at these parks, and there was huge crowds out there. And I remember the city came and they were like, "Hey, dude, you got to shut this down. You can't be doing this." They gave me like an ultimatum. They're like, "We'll let you do this if you give us 30% of your profits." I won't say the city or anything like that for purposes of not exposing, but I was like, "There's no way I can do that." So I ended up finding this old abandoned hockey rink, and it had a massive sinkhole in the middle of it. And to the left, one of the old hockey rinks, a soccer company had actually leased it out from the city. They had turfed it out. And on the right, they had done that with a really big soccer field or hockey rink. They turfed it out, turned it into a soccer field. And there was just this one sitting there in the middle. And I had this idea. I was like, I wonder if I could turn this into like an outdoor gym. And so I ended up through a lot of trial, error, adversity, all kinds of stuff, let's just say, I ended up creating South Florida's first and only outdoor gym. At that time, there might be some more now. And I mean, it was a fully loaded gym. I mean, we spent about, I don't know, man, like 20, $30,000 to get like storage containers out there, like those big ones that you see at the docks. We built a ninja gym out there. We had like, so I mean, there's just we attached like barbells and pull-up bars and squat, like they had the squat racks, and plus we had like the turf. So we had sleds, and I mean it was insane. Started to get attention, right? And so I started to now get into marketing around this phase. This is like 2014. And so I started to like learn how to run Facebook ads. I started to join like my local chamber of commerce, and I started to continue these group on, and I started to learn about referral campaigns. And we grew from around that like 50 to 60 member mark. We grew to a base of like just shy of 300 members at our prime. And we served during the time about, I don't know, if I had to go back to our old CRM, probably like 3 to 4,000 people in just a handful of years. And it was during this time where we had a lot of buzz going on in in our local community, which is in South Florida. So one of our members' husbands came out and he was like, "Dude, I want to invest in this concept. It's unique. I definitely think that there's potential for this." And I was like, I agree. I think so too. You know, being super naive, and so we decided to go the franchise route. And so we were like, let's franchise this. So he put in some money. I took out a loan and put in some money, put a combined total of around 80K or so in to get like the franchise stuff together. And here's a really big lesson I learned in this process. Like, I think all gym owners, all business owners should really start to think about, even if they have no desire to ever franchise or sell their gym or whatever. It's like we had to put together what I call a Lego instruction manual, basically your operations manual. Step one, how to open an LLC, to like step 500, it felt like, of like how to actually deliver an amazing client experience. And going through that process was like so eye opening to me, because you had to learn how to position your brand against all the other competitors around. And like, I never really truly put that much thought into that stuff. You had to learn how to like actually make things repeatable, to where any one of your trainers, like basically when a customer comes in, they get the same experience. And I was just like, wow, like what I learned to kind of wrap the story up, and I'll, lead to American Ninja Warrior and some of these lessons that I think everybody can apply to their content, to the marketing. We did all the franchise stuff. It was around 2015, late 2015, early 2016. And I was out there like Ray Kroc, trying to sell franchises. And little did I know I was going to be running two businesses. I know it sounds super ignorant and naive, but I'm over here running a franchise business, trying to sell locations, and I'm trying to still manage my main location and my team and my trainers. And it was a lot more difficult than I anticipated. And so we're starting to bleed money through the marketing efforts on the franchise side, keeping the location running, paying my staff. Then a handful of months, man, I was like about $45,000 in like loans and credit card debt. And I was just like, okay, things aren't going well. And during this time, my wife was pregnant with our firstborn, my daughter, Ava. The month is now February, and I'm sitting around my kitchen table with my wife, and I'm just like, babe, like, I'm complaining about one of my trainers and like It was just a rough time, and her water breaks, and we ended up going to the hospital, having our baby girl, and I remember being, like, so stressed out because I couldn't pay myself because of, like, the massive financial mistakes that I made in this process, and I was also in joy. It was, like, this weird time of, like, so happy my beautiful baby girl's here, but I'm stressed out because I can't, like, feed my family. And so I remember, like, a few days after we got back from the hospital, I'm sitting in my truck in the in front of my fitness center parking lot, real tears just streaming down my face, just feeling like a terrible man, a terrible human. Like, how did I get here? And I just had this, like, thought. I was like, "Well, I don't know. I don't like, my Facebook ads stopped working. All this other stuff's not working right now. I can figure that stuff out, but I just gotta do something." So I started to go out in my local community, and I just started speaking. I started going to, like, the health nutrition type stores, the vitamin shops, and I started to say, "Hey, can I just come in here for free? I'll just speak to your customers, give them tons of value. You guys can sell a bunch of supplements." They were like, "Yeah, sure." Set up a table and talk. I started to go to my chamber of commerce, and I started to talk there. And then Facebook Live had just recently become a thing, like 2016, 2017. From they stole the idea from Periscope, I believe. And so I started to go live, and I was terrible. I was, like, so bad. Like, I would literally have, like, these papers, and I'd be trying to read off the script, like, cotton mouth, just so nervous. But I don't know, I was just passionate, I was just trying to help people, and one of my friends that followed me on Facebook saw me, and she worked for a TV station down in Miami called The Health Network, and she was like, "Hey, I think you'd be really good on the show." And so I ended up going on, I did, like, I think 3, 4, 5, I can't remember, like, I did a few shows on the Health Network, and I built confidence. I was like, "Oh, okay, I think I can do this." And so I had this dream of being on American Ninja Warrior, and I was too afraid to do it. I was like, "There's no way I'm going up on TV, and no, there's no way." But after building this confidence, I was like, "Let me give it a shot." And so for context for you listening right now, to get onto the show, you submit a 3-minute video that demonstrates your story, your skill sets, and your energy. I mean, it's Hollywood. You gotta show them that you're energetically viable to be on TV. And I kept failing. I couldn't get on. And then one day, I ended up getting on the show. And while I was in front of the head producer, I was like, "Hey, dude, I wanna, like, get on the show again and again. Like, what's the if you could give me one piece of advice, what would you give me?" And he looked me dead in the eyes, and he said, "Your story. Your story is your leverage." And I was like, "Right." Like, I understood the concept, but I was like, "Okay." And what he told me is I was trying to, like, use my electrocution accident and all of these extraordinary stories, and he says, "People resonate more with ordinary stories." Like, our audience, people can't resonate with me necessarily being on American Ninja Warrior, but what people can resonate with is how one man chased his dream, because everybody has a dream. Everybody has a goal and a vision. And so, one of the first major pieces of advice that I can give you here is that when it comes to posting content on social media, when it comes to communicating any regards, even if you're at a networking event, in your local community, your story is your superpower. And there are 3 types of stories. And by the way, Dustin, cut me off if you want to, like,
Uh,
intervene anywhere.
I'm excited to get to these three. I do want to just point out one thing back to the franchise, because I think a lot of gym owners believe they have a special snowflake concept and they should franchise. I've created this amazing, unique thing. So I wanted to ask you to just elaborate on that more. How come you couldn't find a franchisee? What was unique? Did you feel like, hey, we weren't different enough with all the technology and other opportunities out there? Maybe we thought we had something more special than we did, and it was just a standard gym. We didn't have a unique proposition. So, like, what were the struggles you ran into, and why you couldn't find more people to get on board?
Yeah, it's a really great question, and I have definitely dissected this during those times to figure out what was going on. We had plenty of sales opportunity. Like, we had plenty I did so many sales consultations. The issues for us, and I was one of those, I thought I was a special snowflake, right? Because when we had the $80,000, we considered going and getting, like, an actual brick and mortar, but I was just so against following the trends, and I wanted to I mean, we had 298 members at the time. I was like, "We have something that obviously people are paying for, like, lots of people are paying for." And so I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to do that because this is successful. It's proven. If we could prove it here, then we could prove it other places too. Why I don't think franchisees were buying in. I do think I could have cracked the code if I stayed with it, but my vision changed was because we didn't really iron everything out. So while we did build the operations manual from start to finish, there was a lot of questions that potential franchisees have. Because you got to think this now goes from like a me selling gym memberships to me trying to sell somebody on a business opportunity. And when you look around the marketplace, like we even have a proven track record. So it's like I would have to get people to literally take a risk into this concept. And I do think I could have made that happen with enough volume, with enough effort, versus if somebody's looking around and during the time, I know there's new ones out now, but during the time, like F45 wasn't even a thing yet, but it was like Orange Theories were big. Bedros Keuilian had, his fit body boot camps. 9 Round was really blowing up around that time. And people are like, huh, well, why not these concepts? Or in terms of like the outdoor stuff, there was like Camp Gladiator was selling stuff, right? And so I was having to answer these questions, and a lot of people are really not wanting to hedge their bets on a brand new franchise. And so I think if I really went back and what I would have done first before opening up franchise, which think about it in hindsight, it makes logical sense, but I wasn't thinking logically. I was thinking in passion and I was thinking in like vision, but it would be opening up a second location. And it would be then proving it in 2 locations, not just 1. So I can then validate, well, we have 2 successful locations running, and I think that would have given us a little bit more authority, and it would have given us a little bit more of like a proven concept, and I think more people would have been interested in that case.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're definitely spot on with that. That's good wisdom because I think, again, that's what I would caution to a gym owner. That's a one location owner that thinks they have a special sauce and they should franchise it. And unless you have unique technology or a unique way of getting people results or like a different build out that makes you stand out, something very unique, like the amount of money you're going to ask people and the amount of money you need to burn to get to like a profitable state. They say franchises don't really start making money till they're like at 25 to 50 locations. You got to be prepared to suck a lot of cash and those
It
startups.
was way more. It was way more than I initially thought it would be. That's why we started to like, quote unquote bleed money out because we just we went through our cushion and we were anticipating to make some sales before then. But again, this comes down to like this is why, and I even had a franchise advisor, somebody that's probably well known in like the gym space. He cautioned me against this stuff, but sometimes if you can go back, it's like 2020, hindsight's 2020. He like cautioned me against the stuff, but like I was paying him to advise me and I didn't really listen to his advice, you
Yeah.
know, it came back to bite me really hard.
And that's, what they say is like looking forward, opportunities look like risks. And looking backwards, you can connect the dots and you see where you made good decisions. And so
Correct.
people who are looking at you, they're looking forward. They're like, hey, this is a risk. You're trying to get me to open this gym. And you're looking back, you're like, no, look what I did. But to your point, they're like, yeah, but it could be just a one-time hot shot. Like, how do I know number two isn't a massive failure? And, when a franchise does have 50, 100, 300 locations, people feel safer on that bet and putting their money in those places because of that. So,
Yeah.
sometimes you can ride a train on the way up and ride when had lower buy-in fees and lower franchise and you made a really good bet. But like a lot of people who are risk averse, like that's one thing they do say also about franchising is like sometimes you get like not to be cruel, but again, that people can say they're a entrepreneur because they really want to be an entrepreneur, but they don't want to take 100% risk. They want to have the safety of like, I have other, support systems and I have someone I can call. And like, the way you did it was legit entrepreneurism. Is like, I don't have anyone telling me what to do. I have this vision, this crazy idea to do it next to these hockey rinks and the soccer field. That is, like the highest level of risk. And so that's part of the game, right? Entrepreneurism. You got to be prepared for risk.
And one of the things we could talk about here today as well is whether somebody wants to franchise, open up a second location, or they just really they want to differentiate themselves more in their local market. A lot of it comes down to the positioning. Like, not really anybody has, and I know some people might argue this, but if we really think about it, like logically here, not many people have anything super different. Yeah, you might have a slightly different workout style, or you might have a slightly different brand field, right? Or you might have like the very few people actually do have a unique concept or a unique technology like Orange Theory came out with, right? Not many people do, but like even like looking at Orange Theory, that like the first location was down where I used to live. What was her name? Ellen. I was thinking Ellen DeGeneres, not Ellen DeGeneres. It was like Ellen or something like that. But it's all a positioning and how you communicate the perceived value and the perception of the brand really what matters, period, in
Yeah.
the public eye.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to your story because it's so good. What are those 3 lessons that you said that you wanted to, kind of dive into?
I feel like this is like Joe Dirt. Let's get back to your story, Joe Dirt. So when it comes to the storytelling, the 3 biggest things when it comes to story, and story is in my opinion, in my experience, it's like the foundation of a really solid brand, whether it's a brick and mortar gym, an online business, like brands that have great stories stick. And in fact, there's a really good book called Made to Stick. And one of the core concepts of making your idea, your concept sticky, story. There's some other elements too, but when it comes to story and you want to share your message, you want to share what your gym does, you want to share what your brand does in any regard, social media content, anywhere, you got to think there's 3 stories and you can write these down. There's macro stories. Macro stories are like why like why your gym exists, period. Why does your gym exist? Right. For me, I shared a lot of my story about how I was overweight. I was electrocuted in a house fire. I couldn't really find anything that like I liked. I liked to be outdoors. But I didn't want to do standard boot camps because it was like little weights. I wanted to have a full blown gym where I can lift, 200-pound bench. I wanted to do that stuff and keep it functional because that's what we like to do as the firefighters. But I couldn't find it. There was nothing around. And I had that as part of my story of like why I created this particular concept. Right. So, but that's macro story is like why your gym exists. The secondary story, it's called a micro story. And your micro story is why you do things the way you do things. Right. So, as I bled into that, part of that would be my micro story. Why am I doing things like I did? My concept was like 45-minute workouts to where the first 30 minutes were more strength training focused. The latter 15 minutes were more high intensity interval training and stretching and stuff like that. I had people go through the full gamut and it was all guided. Like we had trainers out there guiding them. And why did I do that? Well, I told them like this is what we used to do as firefighters, right? And so I was able to bring a micro story in to why I'm teaching the way I'm teaching, the why I'm coaching or training people the way I'm doing it. And then the third story are mini stories. These could be conversations you had with a client. This could be a conversation which you had with somebody at the grocery store. This could be, a hater on your Facebook ad said something and you just sharing your perspective, your unique take, your everyday stories that are happening. And you can link these things to lessons, right? When I'm sharing the story about American Ninja Warrior and I share a lesson that I learned throughout the process, we have that in our everyday life if we really actually, zoom out for a moment and just become aware. And so those are the 3 main types of stories that you can use across your content, across your marketing that really help rate you because people don't just connect to facts. So if you're putting out the same marketing, you're putting out the same stuff as everybody else, it's going to be hard to really become that, you know, authority, that in demand, that kind of go-to gym unless it's a choice for people, right? Like they don't have a choice rather, like because you're like the only person in town. But if there are lots of other choices in that kind of 5-mile radius, your story and how you communicate that will repel certain people. The people that you probably don't want in your gym anyway, right? The people that are going to be headache customers, and you're going to attract more of the right people. And this is one of the foundational pieces too, to really being able to build community. Because we all know, like when your gym has a solid community, I mean, like LTV goes up, you're able to serve people for much longer because they're staying not just for the gym or for, quote unquote a result, but they're staying because they want to be surrounded by other people that are like them.
Yes. So let's go and apply that to you failing to get on Ninja Warrior to then succeeding, how did you, change your audition or I guess your approach so that you did get accepted? And then, kind of any less than that as well.
Yeah, so, basically and I applied this too to my I was still a gym owner at the time, and I applied this to my marketing too, to my content. But it's instead of trying to come up with, like, as I alluded to, some kind of extraordinary story that's gonna, like, just wow people and blow them away, it's I took these concepts and I started to just talk about ordinary stuff that people would resonate with, period. So, for Ninja Warrior, I was like, "Hey, I this is my day." I'm like, I'm kinda running, I run a gym, I come home, I do marketing, I do this, I do that, I hang out with my family, and I'm pretty exhausted, but now I go to the Ninja gym and I train, and I built an outdoor gym at my Ninja, and I just showed people like this, it was just authentic, right? And then in terms of marketing, I would use that too instead of just like teaching people, "Hey, here's how you do a squat," or "Here's how I would talk through like I would include just more storytelling into the actual content, even into my ads, and it would just hit deeper with people. And we ended up like it started becoming so at the time when I say successful, I mean I wasn't like Mr. Beast or anything, but I went from like basically nobody ever paying attention to my stuff to, having a good base of like 500 to 1,000 people tuning into my videos. And I was still a gym owner. So I was like, huh, maybe because my second born, my son Jackson was about born 2019. So I was like, I think I want to start like getting out of the gym business. I was pretty burned out. We had made it profitable again after the whole ordeal. And I was like, I'm kind of burned out right now. And we wanted to start moving and traveling more. So I was like, I could maybe take some of these lessons and create an online business.
Okay. And so from there, you went online with your fitness knowledge and I guess kind of like touch upon how that went. And I guess who was the first people you were trying to work with, right? You got to zone in because if you try to be targeting everybody, you'll get nobody.
Yeah. So at first, this is mid 29, this is early 2019, I made the decision, right? It was like I knew my son was being born, and I also knew that we potentially were gonna move. And so I wasn't exactly sure what I was gonna do. It wasn't like light bulb, I'm gonna do this. I just knew that we wanted the availability to move from where we were. And so I started to look for people that might want to buy my gym. And I started to like put it out there in different gym owner groups that I was in. And huge mistake I made, by the way, for anybody out there that's considering adding another leg or revenue stream onto their business is I paid one of my trainers a decent amount of money to help me film a follow along workout video. So I was really in at the time, like I was kind of in a network with, Craig Ballantyne and some of these guys. And I remember like Craig Ballantyne had this follow along workout program called Turbulence Training back in the day. And I was like, maybe I can create a version, a version of that for my gym. I could just use that as a second revenue stream, right? That way that pays me and then I can kind of like lease the gym to somebody else. I didn't know. We spent about 6 months, man, creating this. So time intensive. And then when I was getting ready to launch it to my members, like nobody really wanted it. They were like, Jason, we don't want this. I'm like, well, what do you guys want? And they were like, oh, we would just like, are you open to like giving us accountability when we're not in the gym, like more accountability when we're not at the gym with you? I was like, so lesson, survey your people, ask them what they want. And so we ended up creating this. Literally, we just meet on Zoom once a week. I called the Fat Loss Accountability Group. Nothing fancy. I'm sure people have done similar things. And it was an upsell. So people were paying me literally just to get onto Zoom, and I would just help talk them through some of the mental struggles they were going through, and I would just give them more accountability. And we started getting closer. I started having interest in people buying my gym concept, people like that were up in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, like the northern parts. They were like, we would love to come to Florida and move. And so I started getting interest. And so I started to build out very slowly. I was like, I got onto Trainerize and I started to give my members online exercises they could do when they're not here. So if they wanted to go to an inside brick and mortar gym, like an LA Fitness or Bally's or whatever, they could. And right, like I had somebody flying in from Jersey, I think it was, to look at the gym. We were going to talk about the sale. And then 2020 hit. This was the end of 2019. 2020 hit. Everybody pulled out. Everybody. They were like, well, let's wait to see after this mess, and I was like, right. And so we ended up my wife got a job opportunity. We knew this was gonna come, right? And so we ended up moving during this time. Nobody was operating in person. So I was able to have a little bit of leeway. And so I fully launched my online fitness business. Fortunately, a few months prior in 2019, but it was only to my members, nobody outside. And so in 2020, I was just like, boom, went onto my Facebook page and I said, hey, I still have the original post and all of the stuff in a Google document so I could just give to people. And I was just like, I'm running a case study. I'm launching this thing to help people. And for obvious reasons, we blew up and we were able to grow it really quickly. Again, I attribute that a lot to A, I had a lot of skill sets from over the years of building my gym, and B, it was COVID, right? So like people were looking for solutions like that.
Yes. Nice. Yeah, I think that was a good wake up call for everyone in the fitness industry of like, hey, we need in-person revenue. We have an in-person business. What happens when things like this happen? And it's not even COVID, like, there's times that the power goes out at your gym, or in California, the fires, all the gyms nearby had to shut down. So it's like there's natural disasters. Gyms get flooded all the time and hurricanes come through. So like, what do you do? How do you keep revenue going? And so that was definitely a very popular time for a lot of people to switch to online coaching and service clients. So you mentioned I had a base. I had my clients that I could sell to. I learned how to sell in person. I learned how to coach in person. And I do think that that's valuable skill sets, because if you just jump to online and you never coached in person, you lose a lot of those skills, right? You don't get that of like how to correct someone's form, or how to like connect with someone and read their body language as well. Because on Zoom, you only see heads and shoulders, right? So it's like there's so many things, or going out and talking to local businesses, or like, you got on the news. Online people, like, this is not something they're used to doing. And so that's where you have a leg up as an in-person going online versus straight to online. So my question for you is like, let's help that gym owner that like they are struggling with content, just like they're doing zero. Like the only thing they post might be a shout out about a client that just hit 100 sessions, or they might be announcing their next program they're enrolling for, but like they're putting out zero content that talks about them. What I think is there's this deep desire to be humble and to not put the spotlight they're trying to put on their clients, and then just like fill up programs. But I think that also hurts them, because people want to know the person behind the brand and choose, what company they're going to do business with. So speak on that. Like, Jason, people who are just scared, they're making no content. How can they get started? How can they remove that head trash? And like, what's a system they can follow to start making content? Hey guys, just taking a quick break to ask for one thing. If you can give us a 5-star review, it'd mean the world to me. It helps get me feedback on what you're enjoying about the show and how we're adding value to your business. And it helps us get the word out so we can turn the tide on this war against obesity. So give us a 5-star review and let's get back to the show.
Oh yeah, man. Let's unpack. We can unpack this. So the first thing is like, what's the goal? And so if the goal is they're trying to just get more brand awareness in their local area, that's one thing. If they are trying to acquire clients, like they have maybe a hybrid, maybe they're running like in person and they have online, that's another thing. So it all starts with like, what's the goal? Because that really determines how much content, what type of content they should be posting. But let's pretend like I'll kind of give this as a holistic approach so people can kind of like pick and choose what would be best for them. I look at content as these days as not just giving how-to information, right? We have an abundance of information on how to do things. That's not what people need. And it's not that we should never give how-to, but that's what most people go to, is just like they just give some like or yeah, my member just hit 100, this person just hit 100. There's not a lot of emotion attached to it. It's just kind of blah. It blends in. If you look on Facebook or Instagram right now, all you see is like this like very chat watered down kind of filtered content that just blends in and doesn't even do any justice. And then people are like, content doesn't work. And I'm like, everything works. Everything works. It's just like the person working it. And so I look at content in three different pillars. You have what I call conviction. So conviction is, are you showing up as your authentic self? Are you showing up and sharing your real thoughts, values, what you stand for, what you stand against, not just as a gym, but as a human? Because people buy into people. People don't, yeah, there are probably some people that just like, I'm going to join a gym. But if you're going to leverage social media and the power that it can have for you, people buy people. And so humanize yourself, show up, and you get to pick and choose how much you want to share. I have a goal of always showing up online as I do offline. Tell people, what are your hot takes? What do you believe in? What do you not believe in? Right? Share a little bit of your lifestyle. Like that stuff is going to connect with people. And there's deep conviction when you're showing up as your authentic self. And a question you can ask around here is like, if you weren't afraid of being judged or cared what people thought, or and you knew it would work, like you knew do its job, like what would you say? Like do that. And then the second kind of pillar of content I look at is clarity. And so clarity is your messaging and your ideas. And so we can break messaging down. I have and if people go to my YouTube channel, I have a whole like bunch of trainings on messaging and stuff like that that they could dive into if they want to learn more. But for the purposes of this, keeping it really succinct, is we can look at messaging in three categories. The people that attend your gym or that you're trying to attract more of, what's going on in their present moment? Like, what are the present moment things going on in their life? What pains are they in? What struggles do they have? What are they complaining about? What are these present moment things that are happening? And how can you communicate to that? What are the desired state? A look better? Do they want to have more confidence? Do they want to, have shredded abs? Do they want to get strong? What is it for them? And then what's the aspirational identity? But I think that's one thing I did really well in my gym is I built a community full of people that want to aspire to be a certain type of individual. They wanted to be this like this kind of like this functional athlete type person, right? And then the third thing is your uniqueness. What makes you different? Your gym, your concepts, your ideology, your perspectives. Buddha would call this the way. What's your way? When you could share that in there, that instantly starts to separate you. So when you can communicate that stuff in content, it's helpful. And the third thing is coming down to now creation. This is like the tactical stuff. These are maybe the skill sets, right? Like I just got done. I was out in Washington, D.C. I live in Florida. I was out in D.C. doing a speaking event, and I was able to show up. And for the first time, I was not prepared on purpose. Like I knew I had talking points. I knew what my talk was, but I didn't prepare for it at all. I just showed up and I went at it. But I believe that's only because I've done thousands of them between videos and talks. And so you develop skills. And so I do think in the creation part, there's skills, and it's understanding, just like any part of life, there are certain skills. Like, how are you going to hook your audience in? And so sometimes it's just writing better headlines or having a better hook in the beginning of your videos or your ads, whatever you're running. There's like story, as we talked about. You could tell a story and it could be super lame, or you can make it more multisensory. You can bring people into the story, right? You can help it be a bridge. There's your call to actions. How are you influencing people to take action? These are skill sets. And then when it comes to applying this and how you can go apply it, like these are the pillars. But if we want to bucket this into like, okay, well, what would I post on social media, throughout the week? Taking these concepts, I like to call like there's really four types of content, in my opinion. There's connection. That's where you're sharing like that authenticity, what you stand for, what you stand against, your values, your beliefs, things like that, that will help attract more of the right people into your world, repel the wrong ones. Then there's influence. This is where you're challenging the commonly held misconceptions, mistakes, the things you disagree with, and you're helping to shift people's beliefs into what you believe to be true, right? People don't need more information. They need people to help give them a new perspective. And then there's authority content. Might be where maybe you are sharing this person's 100th gym visit or whatever. But how can you do it in a way that's going to make it more emotional? This is where you can apply stories, right? Don't just talk about the result. Tell the story about the person. Give the audience some insight, some lesson. It's taking the same concept and just elaborating. And then there's conversion, right? So I used to do this too. Like, say you're running an in-person workshop at your gym, or maybe you're going to host an online masterclass for people, even if it's local community. You could start to create content in the form of a campaign. And this is where, say your workshop is going to be on, or a promotion even, might be on a certain topic. You would just come up with a good hook and a good call to action, and you would sequence together just a handful of posts over the course of like 5 to 7 days and talk about that and try to drive people to your workshop or your promotion. Like, and that starts to create some more predictability. And I'd say the last thing on here, and then I'm happy to, like, any questions or anything we can unpack, but like the kind of foundation of this all is going to come down to your messaging and your positioning. Like, how you're communicating, you should be able to enter, as Dan Kennedy, I believe, is the one that said, enter the conversation that's going on in their mind and be able to communicate your unique perspectives, your big ideas to them on what you do differently at your gym, on what you believe differently. The better you could communicate that, it's going to help position you differently. And there's obviously more nuances to it, but you know, in a nutshell, it'll position you differently than everybody else.
We were talking earlier about franchises standing out, and to your point, it is tough. That, like, we're gonna probably all want to get the same equipment. We need roughly the same amount of space. We're gonna probably program very similarly, but what you can have differently is your mission. And people want to support companies that have a mission they believe in, because then it does create that community of we, right? We believe this, we buy from this company because we all agree on this one stance, on this mission. And, for an example, like, again, every gym owner can come up with their own. At my gyms, it was to create healthy families for future generations. And so we were like, we're here to impact you, but we're also here to impact your kids and their kids' kids, because we're going to create this ripple effect of health in your family called a generational health. And that was this big mission. And so, like, we plan things for families. Like, a lot of gyms, like, oh, we're going to go out and do drinks and ladies' night. And we had some of that, but more times we're like, how can we include the kids? Can we watch the kids for the clients while they go out and have date night? Can we do things where we teach the kids about nutrition and the parents that are our client? Because the kids really weren't clients. So that's my version. Again, you guys can create your own. So again, I just want to double down on that. And then the other thing I was going to unpack with you was, like, this concept of making content more emotional and not so stale. And so I want you to give me feedback. Like, my thought process is, I take a picture of a client. We all seen it. Client holds a card up that says, I hit 100 sessions. We say, congrats, Susie, 100 sessions. And we post it on social media. Not very emotional, very stale, very, bland. What I would say would be, the coach, you, the owner or the coach, take a selfie with that client, your big smiling faces, and then you write a personalized post about them, right? And it could start with something like, from the day she walked in, I knew one thing. And so it's kind of got this, like, what was that one thing, right? And you go into her story, and it was like, I knew she was going to reach this day, 100 sessions, because she was, like, on fire. I saw it in her eyes. She was not going to quit, and she was going to get to that goal. And so I'm putting a little bit of a story of the day she came in. I'm adding a little bit of emotion. What's your feedback on that, Jason? Is that trash, or am I going in the right direction? Like, tell me what you thought.
Yeah, most definitely. Like, the way I learned storytelling is to make things as multisensory as possible, right? So when you can bring people into an episode in time and help elicit some of the things that would naturally generate that emotional kind of pool. So it's like, yeah, talking about how maybe Susie was struggling with X, Y, and Z, and how she just kind of, like, like, think about a typical story. There's going to be like the problem. There's going to be the maybe rock bottom moment. There's going to be the turning point. There's going to be the solution and the ripple effect. And a little hack here, I don't ever recommend Chat GPT for content. I almost think unless you're like, it takes a lot of skill to turn it into something really good. But what I often do is I'll be out for a walk and I'll just open up Chat GPT. I'll use the talk to text
Mhm.
feature, and I'll just start to, like, hey, 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 Chatty, This is on my mind right now. So I got this client and here's a bit of her story. I want you to format this in like a really simple email or really simple post. I want you to maintain my voice, basically become my ghostwriter. I want you to maintain my voice. I want you to maintain my style here. And I just want you to basically help take what I'm doing and just format it so it's in a coherent post that I can use. And you could, like, do stuff like that, and it'll, like, just kinda help, so if you're not like, "Oh, man, it sounds like a chore to write this stuff out," you can leverage AI and technology to just make your life easier.
Perfect. And so what I want to switch to is like, okay, we talked about like a good framework of how to make meaningful content, how to just make the content land better. So to your point, what's their goal? I would say most people, it is client acquisition. Like they're like, the only reason I'm going to take the time and build content is I want to get more clients out of it. I want to attract ideal customers. So you gave a lot of good frameworks about how to do that. What I would wanted to dig into is like, do you find that having a hybrid offer works? Do you see people with in-person training and online? Has that model been successful, or is it like distraction? It's like just stay all in person or stay all online because you're trying to now run two different businesses under the same roof. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's gonna definitely, vary person by person. Again, it comes down to goals, it comes down to the person's, like, what business model do they want. I've had a good amount of clients that are hybrid that they have a gym and they have an online side. I'm a big believer in simplicity. I think if we overcomplicate our businesses, it just, in my opinion, I've done it. It doesn't suit my values and things like that. But if like I've had people that have a brick and mortar that's like their main thing, but then they just create an online component, and if done right, it works really well. And by right, I mean like if congruent to what they're doing in person, and they just like, so what I did initially was I just took the same style that I did in person and I just uploaded it to the trainer eyes. And I did it initially so if my clients, they couldn't come to the gym, they were out of town, they could still go do the same stuff in another gym, right? And so to me, it was just like bringing an online version mainly for my clients. And then all I had to do was already done. And so now I just had to like market it. And instead of doing an in person consultation, I would do a phone call or a Zoom consultation. And so like I made it all the same thing. I wasn't trying to make it a whole separate business at first. And so I think like depending on how somebody does it makes or breaks if it's too complex or if they just kind of make it a separate tier or even an add-on to
Yes.
what they're doing.
Okay. So let's pretend a gym owner wants to go online. They want to launch. What's your kind of like startup kit like advice to kind of get going, get to that first, bit of revenue? Let's call it 5K a month even, because online it's going to be probably nearly all profit, right? It's with softwares, and if they do it themselves, they can take it home for the most part. And maybe it is a bolt on. Maybe they have one or two one-on-one PT clients, and that client would like to work out 3 or 4 times, and they can say, well, I can give you online hybrid, right? So like, what's that initial like starting up this type of service look like? Kind of just thinking through those initial decisions, like when you're coaching someone at that startup phase.
Yeah, this is exactly what I did, to a T. I can give that.
Yeah.
So, I put out a post on social media, and I was basically like, "Hey, I am gonna launch this online fitness coaching program that's for these types of people that are looking for this type of result." Basically, it was a weight loss offer, and, I'm looking to be able to collect some case studies for this. And I put that on Facebook. I put emails out to my gym members and to my past prospect list. And then I would just did warm outreach via text message, and via DM, just to people that are already in my network, maybe past clients, current clients, people that I met at networking events. And I was just like, hey, this is what I'm doing. And so I spent about I would say like 7 to 10 days, like just kind of promoting it like that. So mix of some content, promotional type content that was very benefit driven for them, and warm outreach, sending out emails and stuff like that. And I was able to book 22 sales calls right out of the gates over the course of like a week and a half, 2 weeks. And I ended up closing 11 clients. I was selling not super high ticket at the time. It was probably 250 a month. And then I quickly realized that people were buying that like so fast. This is back in 2019, by the way. It wasn't even COVID yet. And I ended up raising the price to, I think we were doing it at like 350 a month, or they could pay in full. And I closed 11 clients like that. So that's how I initially got my first clients in. And I'd say most of them were people that I already had. They were either current clients, past clients, or people that I already had connections with. I had zero people that were cold, that like like one guy, but he was the husband of somebody I trained
Yeah.
already, you know what I mean? So, but everybody had come from a warm network.
Yeah. And that's what I've heard is like even go through your phone, like the closest contacts, clients, past clients, go through your phone contact list, post then, your friends on Facebook, right? And just keep expanding out.
And while I did this before Hermosi had his like book, I think in the Leeds book, because I read it a while back when it first came out, he had a very like similar process to like, I don't remember it verbatim, but I remember it was like if somebody's contactable, put them on a list and then reach out, and he had like scripts and stuff in there. So I'm sure that would work equally as well. But in principles, right? These are foundational things that like it work. And then from there, you now generate a whole bunch of extra cash flow, even if it's just a few thousand a month. You have this extra cash flow, and then from there, you can start working on creating better systems to make it to where it's repeatable.
Yes. And for a gym owner that's like strapped for time, they're like, I don't know if I have the time to do that. What would you say is like the honest time investment to manage the business somewhere around the 5 to 10K revenue range? Like how many hours can someone expect to put in for that?
From like a marketing side, like a content side.
Content and then like I guess servicing the clients as well. I know it depends on how they build out their model, right?
Yeah, I mean, everything rises and falls on the systems you have in place. Like, one of my mentors is like, you can't out hustle bad process. And so, like, bad process equals lots of time. Good process equals efficiency a lot of time. So, from a marketing perspective, this is my, if you only had, maybe an hour a week to do this, this is what I would do. I would film a YouTube video because YouTube, you can leverage SEO and there's so many ways you can repurpose it. I would sit down, I could be on my phone, I could be on my computer, wherever you want. I would film a YouTube video. It could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, just talk on a topic, share a story, shift beliefs. Really good framework for this is what are you going to talk about? What's the hook, right? Why is it, and then why? Why does it matter? What's the insight? How is, what practical takeaways, insights, tips, things you're going to give them? Now, what do you want them to do now? Do that YouTube video. In YouTube, you can use a service like Descript is a really good one, or you could just publish the video. Then in YouTube, you can go into the script section. There's the transcript button. You can click the transcript on your video. You could copy and paste the transcript, and you can then upload the transcript to ChatGPT. I have a prompt, and I'm happy to share it with you. And like you can share it, you can like plug it in below the show notes or wherever. But basically, the prompt is essentially saying, become my ghostwriter, maintain my voice, maintain all this stuff. I want you to create a promotional post so I can promote this video. I also want you to take the transcript and I want you to create a couple different styles of posts. I want one post to shift people's beliefs, give them some value. I want, and you could create different types of content there. And that way you could send it to your email list. You could start building you could start building your personal brand on YouTube, and you can leverage all that content. And so if I had very little time, that's exactly what I would do, because I can create all my content for the week based off that one transcript
One
for that
you
video.
nice.
Yeah. And that's where we leverage AI. That's where it's like it comes straight from your words. You kind of created the ground zero initial piece of content. Then when it comes to managing it, if you use something like Trainer Eyes or PT Distinction or whatever, there's plenty of them out there right now. It's just making sure you have things templatized, right? When you have things templatized, you don't need it all done at once. You only need to be a couple weeks ahead of people, right? Uh, Eventually, it'll all be templatized. From there, as long as you're serving like a similar demographic, like if you've got like 75 demographics, it's going to be a nightmare. But if you're serving basically the same problems, then you can enter people in, and it doesn't take very long to like really, you just could show up and give weekly check-in, give them some type of support, whatever they need, whether it's like a WhatsApp channel that they can hit you up on and ask questions. And then from there, it's like really simple. I mean, you can hire a virtual assistant to help manage some of like the tactical things, like some of the onboarding administrative type tasks, or you can even hire an assistant coach if you have like the margins for it. to help with check-ins. And then it becomes virtually hands off and you just have to spend hours a week maybe creating some content, checking in, making sure things are going smooth.
Yeah. No, those are all very good points. And I think two things trainers and gym owners are just guilty. I was like, I'll take anybody that's got the money. So then you do find yourself working with, I got an older adult client, I got a student athlete, I got a middle-aged mom trying to lose fat, and you're trying to build programs for all of them because you're not staying focused and, saying no to the ones that are not your ideal client. So I think that's definitely sound advice. The second is I think there's this guilt of like, I'm not giving them my time. Normally in person, they're going to get my time. I'm with them for a 30-minute session or a 1 hour session. And now the app's just giving them the workout. And so they'll load more work on them that necessarily doesn't mean more value. So they're like, we're going to do one-on-one calls. I'm going to do a group call 3 times a week. And it's just like more content, more noise, but it like the person hired you to design their program and to hold them accountable. They're not there to like go into deep macro education and be on these 3 calls a week of nutrition,
Dude,
right?
yeah, I went down that route, man. I mean, I tried to educate the crap out of people and I spent a lot of time. And at the core, and I developed a bunch of assets, and I'll remind me, Dustin, like I have a folder and just send them to you that you could share with people just to help because like I spent the time doing it the wrong way and then I spent the time creating more efficiency. And honestly, people that are hiring somebody for online, especially in health and fitness and nutrition type stuff, it's like they're more motivated to do it. They're just looking for accountability, and when things aren't going right, they're just looking for somebody to give them some guidance and some support. And so when you like, you can have like I used to give people one to one. I used Voxer back in the day, but these days I would use WhatsApp. It's just way better in my opinion. But whatever, you could have some kind of support so people would just check in, right? And then you could on or one to one conversations here and there. When you have a group we used to have, and I eventually delegated this, but you could do one group call a week, and just people like to come on, and they just like to be around other people that are on the same mission, and that way you could just be there to answer questions, coach them, and you can do it in bulk.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's all good advice. And again, build it for your lifestyle. That's the whole point of a business is, yes, you want to serve, but you also want to make money and you want to build a business around, you having freedom, right? And if you create so much work, you have no freedom now, and now you can't do anything you want. So, Jason, this is all really good stuff. I want to, as we wrap up here, point gym owners to go follow you so they can learn more about, your advice around content, your whole strategy. Where's the best place to go and, learn more about what you do and follow your story?
Yeah. So Facebook is where I'm doing most of my content right now, and if they're looking for more like deeper, more depth, my YouTube channel is where I'm posting 1 to 2 videos a week there on like how to do it. If they shoot me, and I could give you the link for this too, but if they shoot me a DM on Facebook and just say they listen to the podcast, I can invite them into our Facebook group where like I do more like long form master classes. And I mean, I've been at this for a long time and I have so many resources for them depending on where they're at that they can just have.
Okay, great. Thank you. So yeah, to the gym owners listening, this is something to look at. Like if you want to expand and add on, make sure you're in a stable place. You have the team that, you can take action on it. But that's why I was excited to bring Jason on. Number one, I want to help you guys improve your content or just get started with content. Number two, look at this as another potential revenue stream. And then number three, just kind of hear Jason's story, because again, I think there's a lot of lessons we can pull from it, from storytelling to business frameworks. And so it's been awesome. So thank you, Jason. Appreciate you, man. And again, guys, go follow him on Facebook and his YouTube channel so you can learn more about his teaching. All right, guys, see you next time. Gym owners, I don't want you to have the reputation in town as the gym that doesn't call people back. All right, we know it's critical when someone's finally made a decision to get healthy and fit that we get to them as quickly as possible. This can be solved by plugging in our remote sales reps, okay? It's not AI, it's not a bot, it's a real human that's working on your leads, the new ones that come in from your ads and the old leads in your database. And they're there to qualify the leads, to ask them discovery questions and to make sure they're a good fit And then their job is to move them forward in your sales process so that you get more members month over month. All right. If you want to learn about our remote sales reps, go ahead and go to gymreinforcements.com, book a call, and we'll tell you more about it. See you then.